as Marco mentioned, we are going to talk about a project to figure out if we are in Athens and you want to go out with your friends. You can use a very simple Python bot in our event to determine where to go for a night out, to hang out with your friends. And we can create this very simple bot only with Azure Personalizer and some very simple Python coding. So a few things about me. I am a computer science student in the University of Athens. I really enjoy taking part in tech communities such as the Microsoft Learning Ambassador or the Google Developer Student Club. And I'm very passionate specifically about Azure AI, so things with machine learning, with AI, like from custom vision and so on. All right, let's see a little bit what we are going to talk about today. Have a clear structure. First, we're gonna have a quick introduction about what is Azure Personalizer. Many of you may not have heard about this already, or you may already be familiar with the product, with the service. And then the most main part of the presentation will be a live demo of this Python bot that we want to create. It's a very simple Python bot because we want to understand the main aspect of Personalizer. So that's why we only have to we only need a very simple bot to understand that, and then you can implement it in a larger scale project. All right, let's start right away. So what is Azure Personalizer? So you may have heard about different kind of products of Microsoft, about AI, about machine learning. I think we're going to have a presentation. I'm not sure if today or tomorrow about custom vision, but Azure Personalizer is a cloud-based service that basically helps your application and helps the users get the best content that they need. So what does it mean? That if, for example, a user uses your application, if you have Azure Personalizer integrated in the application, you can give back to the user a personalized personalized context and personalized items to get them the best user experience that they can get. So it's mostly how is this working. For example, if you have Personalizer integrated in your application, the Personalizer suggests something to the user. So suggest an action, suggest a place to go, or suggest a news to read, or suggest like an item in general. It depends on the kind of application that you have. The user then sees these suggestions, sees this what the Personalizer recommends to you, and then the Personalizer observe this reaction. So is it positive? Am I interested? Is the user interested in this recommendation? And if it is, and if it was successful, the Personalizer gets a reward. And through this process, through this suggest an action, observe the reaction of the user, and gets rewarded depending on if the user liked the content that was recommended or not, the service learns through reinforcement learning, and then suggests even more personalized results to the users. So of course you can understand that we can use Azure Personalizer for content filtering, for UI or UX improvements, for menu suggestions that we're mostly going to talk about for today, for improving bots, and also for notification content. So today we're going to only talk about one aspect where we can implement a Personalizer, but feel free to use it in many other projects that you have. All right, let's see some very examples of what exactly is that the things that we are talking about. Let me see. Okay. All right, so we have two main groups that we work with. So there are these actions. The actions is the items that the personalizer recommends to the user. So these items have specific features in order for the personalizer to understand the differences between each other and recommend. And then there is also the context features. So the features of the user mostly. So it could be anything. So the user that uses an application, your application, you can get their information, their device information, or in what part of the world are they, or what time of day are using the application, in order to combine both of these data, the actions with their features and the context features, so the user features. So combine those two data in order to rank all the possible actions, all the possible items that they exist, and recommend back to the user the top ranked the top ranked item. So we have here some examples. The actions can be a news list, or different kind of movies, or different kind of products, and the content features could be like from device, like the device features could be anything, like time and so on. And then we have this behavior of the user. So how does the user react to this recommendation from the personalizer? If it was well received, then we get a reward score of 1. And if it's not, and if the user just scrolls by and doesn't like the content that was recommended to them, then the reward is 0. So in between, you can, of course, the rewards vary, and we can get the best behavior of the user. So these are some basic examples of what is the data that we're working with. Next page. So again, very quickly, before we move on to the demo part of our presentation. So what is that Azure Personalizer do? There is, let's rephrase again. So for example, I'm using an application. So Rodanthi is going to this test.com and uses this application and goes to see some different kind of, it's a news application, for example, different kind of news. So I go into the website, and with Azure Personalizer, it gets my information, of course. I know the information that the personalizer is going to use, and everything has to follow a specific guidelines, and we talked about this again in the previous presentation about the transparency and everything for those kind of data. So it gets my user information and but different kind of features. And then the application has some specific items that wants to display to me. So this is the actions, and these kind of items have different features that make them unique, or that make them the personalizer needs in order to recommend this to me. And the service uses those kind of data, and with Frog API, we'll learn in a second how we are going to work with that and implement that in a Python bot in our VS Code code. With Frog API, those two kind of data gets ranked through this training service, and then with reinforcement learning and with this kind of thing, after being ranked, we get this rank response. So we get a list of the ranked items for for myself, for Rodanthi, who is now using the application. So after we have after the items are ranked, it gets Rodanthi, for myself, I get to see the top ranked item, the top ranked news, for example. And if I click on the news, if I click on it, then it means that the ranking was successful. It was something that I wanted to see. So the reward is it's high. It's close to 1. And if I just scroll by, that means that it's not something that I'm interested in. So that means that the reward is 0. And if I don't click, but I just like stop and look at the title but I don't click, then that means that it's like 0.5. So it's just 50-50. I don't want to see the news, but at the same time I don't want to scroll by. So this is kind of the thing that we're working with. And of course, after my behavior, after the user behavior and their reward score gets back to the service with the reward API in order for the reinforcement learning to continue. Of course, I also put the link here, but I can share it afterwards as well. You can learn many more things about how Personalizer works, the most theoretical aspects in the Azure Personalizer documentation in Microsoft Docs. All right, so now we have like a lot of time, so let's just dive deep into our demo, our Python bot. Of course, I've used a very simple one just to get familiar with the main ideas of Personalizer, but you can use you can use it in a React web app, for example. I can tell you that because I have integrated this in another project with the React web app, so in JavaScript, and we can work with this with other bot frameworks that you need and you want to implement, or generally any kind of web app, for example, that you want to create with different kind of data. So now we're going to talk about specific data for our for a night out in Athens, but of course you can choose your own data and your own items to show the user. So what is what we want to create today? So this is what you see in your screens, the very, very simple bot that we're going to create. As you can see, it's just like this is the end result. So it's just we have two like main user features. So we want to get information data for two things: the user and the actions, the items that we want to recommend. So for the user data, we are going to only to answer to ask the user 2 questions because it's just for the demo part. So we have to what the mood of the user is. So are they happy? Are they energetic? Are they nostalgic? Are they sleepy? Or and second one, how many people are their friends? That are the company for this night out in Athens. So there's this just very two simple user features that we need, and then we will see in a minute our action features to and how we get them. And then you can see here in the bot with Azure Personalizer recommends back to you a place. So in our case, Personalizer thinks you would like to go to Brew STR. This is a place in Athens, and if it is something that you want to, like it is interested to you, then of course you say the bot asks, is this correct? And you say yes or no. And if it's yes, then we've sent the reward is 1. And if it's not, 0. This is the basic part that we're going to create today to understand the basics of Personalizer. So let's start right away. Let's start with the context features. So we want the mood and the company of the user. So but generally, let's talk a bit more general features. So, of features of the users of your application. It could be not only these very basic questions for our demo, but of course it'd be more useful to be demographic and profile information, the current time where the user uses the application, also day of the week, if it's a weekend or if it's morning or afternoon, and if it's a whole decision and so on. Depends on the information that you want to give to Personalizer for your application. Then it could be information extracted from mobile applications, the location, movement, and battery level. And also it could be, of course, always with the compliance of the user and everything, and the laws, that the historical aggregates of the behavior of users. So, for example, in another project, it would be what are the movie genres this user has viewed the most. So just keep in mind that it is recommended when you use Azure Personalizer to keep your context features as generalized as possible. So if, for example, we want to give the time of the user, right? When does the user uses our application? Not include the specific time, so like 12:55 or something like that. Use more general features, so it's morning, afternoon. In order for the app personalizer to get trained quicker and more with better results. So keep that in mind for better feature when you want to figure out what kind of features are going to include in your project. This is for the first part, the first data that we want to use and give to the personalizer. For our case, for our presentation, for our demo, this we are going to get these features very, very easily. So we have created our GitHub repository for our project. We have cloned the repository and then opened it in our VS Code, and now we can start coding. So we can have two very simple functions to get the data that we want to use for the user. And this is very simple. We have two, one for the mood and one for the friends group. And we get the input from the user in both cases. And then, because we want to have them in a specific form, as you see in the last coding line, we want to have this in this kind of form, then our data, in a key value form. So that's why let's go here again. That's why we make sure that it is in this form that we can give back to the service to analyze it. It's that simple, of course, because our questions is always against simple as well. But as you can see here, our data is also generalized. We don't get specific characteristics of the user because this will not work well for our service. So that was the very simple thing of how to get our user data. And then let's go to the second set of data that we want to use and that personalizer needs, and that is our items, our actions with their own features. So this is the content items that we have features for each specific item. Again, it is important to have more generalized features for our items for better results. In our project, we have two different kind of actions, items. We have bars and we have restaurants for a night out in Athens. We get that data with very simple web scraping from different kind of websites, from like travel websites and so on. And we have, for example, in our bar data, we have two types of features, which is the type of the bar. So if it's more like, for example, you can see the data is in Greek because it was from Greek websites, but the type could be like a cocktail bar or outside bar and so on. And also the map feature is in Σύνταγμα, which is a place in the center of Athens. Σύνταγμα is Mastiraki, so not the specific location, so exact coordinates of each bar, for example, but more generalized context. And we have the same thing for the restaurants data, so the type, if it's like Mediterranean food or it is Greek, Mexican, and so on. Map, again, generalized location, not specific location for each item. And then how expensive it is. So we can see that this is the data here is it's numbers, but we also have strings for features. Also, before we move on, a very an interesting thing to keep in mind when you want to create your list of actions. Keep in mind that the Azure Personalizer works best when the items are 50 and less. So if you have a large data set, it's very useful for you, and you have to actually, in order for personalization to work, and recommend you the best option. If you use other techniques like classification techniques in order to reduce a larger data set of actions to 50 actions, 50 items. In our demo, that is okay, because I think we have like 40 in 40 different bars and then like 30 different restaurants. But okay, keep that in mind when you work with in your application with larger data sets. So let's now figure out how we're going to give these actions, give these items, and these user features to the personalizer in order to get our results. All right, we can just go to the Azure portal. We'll probably already have a subscription in Microsoft Azure. If you don't, I think for students there is for university students, I think there's 150 euros. I'm not sure of free use of the services of Azure services. So feel free to check this out. And if you go to the Azure portal and log in, you can just search for the Azure Personalizer to just get started. And you want to create, in order to use the rank API and then reward API and so on, you need to create a resource, Azure Personalizer resource. So we get to the we search for Azure Personalizer, we get to personalizers and create a new. And the only thing that we need right now is to fill in the different kind of the different kind of information that personalizer needs. So it could be we have to fill in our subscription that we use, the resource group that we also use. In our case, it's the resource group. Of course, feel free to use your own, your own name, and then you have to name the personalizer that you want to use. For our demo, it's night out. Make sure that everything is okay for the name part, and then lastly, you have to choose the pricing tier. So which fits best to your needs. For the demo part that we're going to use now, and it's mostly like we don't have many transactions like at all every day. So we have a free solution so that we are going to use. So that means we only have 50K transactions per month. There is also the standard pricing tier if you are working with other kind of applications and not only to get familiar with Personalizer and so on. So now we're ready. Very simple. We just have to fill that out. And if you don't want to check out any other aspects for the network and so on, you can review and create. And when the deployment is ready, so everything worked great, and then you have your new personalizer, and you can go to resource and then of Azure Personalizer, and you are going to get to this kind of page. So now we have all our information about our resource that we have. The endpoint to the location and everything that we're going to need. And the two things to get started to actually start coding and finish a very simple project is two aspects of this of our resource. It's the configuration part in the resource management on your left, and it's also the keys and endpoint. So that we need our key and we need an endpoint to work with the APIs for our reward and rank APIs. So let's start right away to see the first one, which is the configuration. Of course, depending on your application, you can change that accordingly. It's different things also, the reward wait time, so different kind of how the service works. And also for our demo, we only changed at the end the model update frequency to 10 seconds in order to have better results and in order to get like just to understand what the different what the rank API, how the rank API works, and get like faster results. But this is only for our demo part. So you can find this in the configuration part, and also we need like also in the resource management, the keys and the endpoint for our Python code. So when we get those two things, our key and endpoint, we get right to our back to our VS Code right in our main file, and after we're working with Python, so we should have installed the Azure Cognitive Services Personalizer, and after we have installed that, we can import the different kind of things that we need from this package, and then we copy paste basically the key and the endpoint of the Azure Personalizer resource that we had just created, and then we authorize it in order to start using the service with the Personalizer client part. All right, so that was pretty much it. Now we can just actually start seeing how we're going to give the data that we have from the user and from the actions back to back to the Personalizer to get started and to get our top ranked recommendations. All right, so this is the first part. So we have our data, our actions data for the bars. In the first case, we read the kind of the features that we have, and then with a very simple function, we get the different. We have as the name of the bar as the main. As the ID, and then as the features of this ID of this if it's bar, we have the type kind of bar and the map type. So where is where they're located. So we finally have this for each kind of bar. So in our case, we have 29 bars. Again, lower than 50. We get this. Now we can use as you can see in the highlighted part, the rankable action function in order to pass the information of the ID name, which is the name of the bar, and the features of our action, which is the different kind of characteristics that we have found. And so now we have a rankable actions that a list of rankable actions of all the bars that we need for our items. And now that was it. I mean, we have now a list of this rankable actions, and we can work with it to get results. So in our case, we're working very simply, just having a simple loop to go through the whole bot, the Python bot. We get a different kind of event ID for each time we communicate with the personalizer. For each time a user gives their characteristics, the personalizer comments something back and gets rewarded. This is an event. So for each kind of event, we get a different ID. So this is the first step. And then the two very simple steps. You have to get the context data. So we call the two functions that we have seen before. The very simple that we give the data from the user to the as code, and then we get also the actions with also the function that we have just seen. So we get actions bars in order to have a list of all rankable actions, and then we have those different kind of data, context and actions. And the things that we do, we have we just send a rank request. So we use a rank request thing we have imported from the Azure Cognitive Services Personalizer, and we give the data that the personalizer needs: actions, the context features, and if we wanted, we could also pass information about the excluded actions from our model, and also give the event ID, which is unique for each event. For each time we go through the whole bot and have something recommended to us, have something rewarded. So we pass this information as a rank request, and then we get back the response of the now ranked list of different kind of items. And the thing is that we just have to do now is it's very simple. We get this ranked list, and we can go through the whole list and get the ranked ID. As you remember, the ranked ID is the name of the of the bar. In our cases, could be restaurants, could be everything, and also the ranked probability. So how likely it will be to get recommended to us and to be the thing that the user wants to see. And then when we do that, we get to the last part of our bot, which is mostly the bot gives back the top ranked action, which is, in our case, you can see in the third part, the response.reward action ID. So the best one. And then, and if this is correct, so we have seen the way that bot works. We have, because it's a demo, 3 cases. It could be either actually 2 cases. It will be the correct answer. So yes, this is where I want to go. This is the bar that I want to go. Or it's no, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to go. So if it's positive, of course it's 1. If it's yes, and if it's negative, it's 0. So the default one, you can change that if you want. The default reward is 0. And then we give back the client events reward to the service in order then to get do for the service to learn and recommend next time something better. So this was pretty much it, and here you can see most analyzed the different kind of data that we get at the end. So we can get, this is the ranked list, for example, of our probability for our actions with the probabilities. You can see, I think we have a lot of time, so we can go through more depth about that. In our case, for the demo, of course, the personalizer hasn't yet understood exactly what the top ranked option should be. So it's the first steps. I mean, we have only used it for 1 or 2 calls, and this is usually used for 1,000 ones. So now we get the different kind of. You can see that the the blind bigger, which is finally the one that's recommended to us, has a very has a high probability, but as you can see, there are not many different distinctions between each kind of bar. So the personalizer hasn't learned yet, doesn't understand yet what Rodanthi, that uses the bot, wants to go to. And you can, of course, change that with many different ways. Of course, the easiest one is when you are using an application, a web app, for example, that has many users every day. The personalizer will get many different user data, and then can better understand the different recommendations that it has to give. And okay, Rodanthi's, for example, profile fits this group of profiles, so I should recommend them this kind of action. So keep that in mind. Of course, this is a very just simple bot to understand the main points of how a personalizer works. But keep that in mind. So in order, if you want to get personalizer really working, use it with many more users. Keep the actions up to 50, and then also important thing is that depending on how precise your recommendation should be, of course you should give a different kind of features, different kind of characteristics to the users or to the actions that you need. If you want more precise recommendation, of course, we only had like 2 kind of characteristics. Have more. Again, keep that more generalized, because if you have specific as we've mentioned, the exact coordinates of a place or the exact time of the day, it's not going to help. It's just keep that generalized, but also you can add more. You can add more features, not make it more specialized. So this is what we did today. We sent basically a JSON object to the server. We got from the server, it gets called the Personalizer Rank API that we can use because we have an Azure Personalizer resource. And then the server receives the response, that the ranked list, and also returns the top ranked action to the client to display. So that was pretty much the basic points of how we're going to use the Azure Personalizer. Lastly, before we move on to, because I think we have some time before we move on to possible questions that I can may answer, or if I can advise you to see a specific article if I cannot answer the question. Before we move on to that part, let's just quickly mention it was the the need for responsible implementation of Personalizer. The different kind of aspects were mentioned in the previous presentation by Despina, so for more details, please check this presentation. But it's always important when we design and work especially in an AI project, to keep in mind not only the technical aspect but also the law aspect. So how it's respectful to the users and doesn't violate any of their freedoms. So we have to be careful, because you can check this out more in depth in the link that I've put here, but I can share the link afterwards as well. It's in the Azure Personalizer documentation under the Ethics Responsible Use for more details. And if you create your own a personalizer model and use it in your application, or use it create an application for someone else, you also should be careful, because you also have accountability for this for where the personalizer is used. So keep in mind, the AI must be fair. So it must be fair to all of its users. It must be reliable and follows all the safety rules. It's very important, especially in the last couple of years, with different kind of things and situations that came in the news in this kind of area. Also, we mentioned before, we got this data from the user because we follow the privacy and security guidelines. We should be careful of that, not store the information that the user gets as not in a goodwill. So keep that in mind, because we are working with Azure Personalizer with user data. So that's something important to keep in mind with the new guidelines. And also, of course, keep the AI inclusive and transparent. And also, lastly, make the people that have designed the AI Personalizer accountable for the kind of need that they want to use it for in their app. So keep that in mind. Of course, see the previous presentation for more details, or visit the specific link for more information concerning this kind of aspect. But I think now I'm gonna thank you for your attention for this quick introduction to Azure Personalizer, and also for our quick, very easy demo.